we might be able to get that sorted for you. Our free phone number 0808 100 1034. You could text 81333, put Devon at the start of your text message. WhatsApp 08000 321 333, or send us a message. Kieran Satchell is a freelance science communicator on the subject of paleontology for the Jurassic Coast Trust. And as we've discovered in the past on this show, he loves his dinosaurs. Don't you, Kieran? Hi.
I absolutely do. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, it's a pleasure. One of these days, I'm sure I'll get the chance to see your collection, because you've still got masses of them in your home, haven't you?
I absolutely do, and it's only ever growing bigger.
Not a bad thing, really. Can we start with something that I know you're really keen to chat about? What a start to 2022 it's been, the discovery of a sea monster.
It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think I speak on behalf of everybody who's a paleontology enthusiast when I say that it really is an incredible discovery.
Let me just get the pronunciation of this right, because Fitz has been laughing at me for calling it an Ichthyosaurus, but it's not.
So it's an ichthyosaur, which is from the Latin name, which translates to fish lizard.
Right, and it's a bit, I don't know, I've seen the pictures of it. Would have looked a little bit like a dolphin, but a bit more monstrous.
Yeah, absolutely. So a really interesting topic that I'm really keen of is the fact of talking about how an animal that is not related to a dolphin has come to evolve and look very much like a dolphin, even before dolphins evolved. And that is as a result of a very special process called convergent evolution, where two separate organisms that are not related to one another evolve to look very similar because they live in the same environment.
Oh, that's interesting. So, although it lived millions of years before, I presume, our the dolphins that we know now existed, they've kind of evolved together. Do we know the earliest sort of existence of the dolphins we know now?
Off the top of my head, that's a very good question. I would struggle to answer that particular question.
But they wouldn't have lived together.
No, absolutely not. No. So dolphins obviously evolved from a mammalian ancestor that would have been land-based initially, and over millions of years regressed back into an aquatic lifestyle, which there gave rise to dolphins and whales. And a very similar thing happened with ichthyosaurs. It would have been a reptilian ancestor all the way back in the Triassic, probably later than 250 million years ago. And that would have given rise to the ichthyosaurs, the marine reptiles that we know of.
So it is described as a marine reptile then, this particular dinosaur. Okay.
Very much so.
And the find, at this Midlands Reservoir has been hailed as one of the best fossil finds, hasn't it, in UK history. I was watching some of the videos and pictures of it this morning. It is stunning.
It's just absolutely massive. Just the sheer size of it is impressive. And it is the first instance of this particular species of ichthyosaur from outside of Germany. So if I can just pronounce, I believe it's Temnodontosaurus. There are different subspecies of Temnodontosaur, but none of this particular species has been found out of Germany up until now.
And it's very clear, isn't it? I was just looking at some of the pictures of it, and they've retrieved this thing. It is a skeleton, basically, and you can see, everything in such detail. You can see the shape of it perfectly.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. You can see, because of the detail, you can clearly see that the animal died laying on its back. So it's actually lying there belly upright.
Oh, really? I didn't realise that. Okay. Well, what have they done there? Let's go back. How was this found in the first place?
So it all goes back to the initial discovery, which was made by, I believe, a gentleman called Joe Davies. And basically, he was kind of just doing routine work at the Rutland Nature Reserve. That was back in February. And basically he found what he thought to believe maybe like a rusty piece of pipe. And after kind of having a little dig around and looking at it more, he realized he had something a lot more important. So he reported it into local authorities. they got in touch with a friend and colleague of mine who headed the paleontological excavation, Dean Lomax, and he came to kind of do all the initial assessments. And it turned out that because of the weather conditions and of that time of year, they couldn't actually excavate it until the summer of that year. So they had to cover it back over with a tarp to keep it all safe, keep everything secret and hush-hush until they could come back with a proper team to excavate it in the summer.
See, I'm confused here because it was found at the bottom of this reservoir. How come the bottom was visible? Had all the water been, gone right down? Or was it at low levels? Is that how?
Yeah, so they do, from what I understand, they do routine drainages of the reservoir in certain areas for conservation reasons. So it was part of one of those routine kind of drainages, scouting the area, from what I understand. And that's how they kind of stumbled upon it. I know that other ichthyosaur material have been found there in the past, in the late 1900s, but nothing of this magnitude.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, Kieran, whether, in Devon's reservoirs that haven't, been drained perhaps for many years, we could find things like this.
I mean, it's one of those things where in order to know if you're going to find a fossil, you need to know if the rock layers are going to be the right kind. And I think that's probably one of the more common questions I get asked is, if I go to this location or this location, will I find a fossil? And the reality is you can't find fossils just anywhere. It's all down to there being the right kind of rocks from the right age. Because of millions of years of plate tectonic shifting, certain parts of the UK have the right kind of rocks exposed. And thus why the Jurassic Coast is so special, because it's got the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous rocks all in one stretch of coastline, which is amazing.
So,
but when it comes to other reservoirs, it's a question of whether that reservoir is located at the right kind of rock formation.
I'm with you. So you can take an educated guess as to whether it's going to yield much of interest or not. But if we're still discovering these things, and it's fascinating, really, the discoveries that we're still having today. There's an awful lot more out there that we can still find. And we've talked, haven't we, in the past about just wandering along the Jurassic Coast and picking up some fantastic things, which you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of this field is you just, it's constantly yielding new finds as natural processes, erode the cliffs, erode rocks. Slowly but surely, more and more things get revealed for people to find. And I think that's it's a really beautiful thing, if I could be so corny to say, really, because it means that nature is naturally stopping people from getting all to it all too quickly. It's preserving things for later generations to also stumble upon.
Oh, what a lovely way of looking at it. I'll remember that. Now, this is going to sound a little bit out there, Kieran, so bear with me. But whenever a story about the Loch Ness Monster appears, I always think about the possibility of something like one of these sea monsters from, from prehistoric times surviving. Is there any, even vague possibility, don't laugh at me too much, that something has survived and bred and continued?
Well, we're bordering into the lines of what's called cryptozoology, and that is an actual field of study of hypothetical animals, like the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, all that sort of stuff. It is the study of supposedly mythical animals, so to speak, in folklore and all that. The chances of something like that really being in Loch Ness is next to impossible because, people kind of argue, but the size of Loch Ness is absolutely huge. Who knows what could be down there? But in order for a population to really be sustained long enough for all those millions of years in one isolated location, it's just very, very minimal. I don't see that being a possibility at all.
No, I know. It's a bit Jurassic Park, this, isn't it? But the other way around.
It's an exciting thought, definitely.
I'll feel quite happy to swim in it next time I'm up in Scotland. Thanks for that. So we've talked a little bit, haven't we, about this wonderful creature that has been discovered. I'm trying to get my head around the operation to get it out of the reservoir. You say that they had to wait until the summer to do this, and your colleague was heading up that. You must have been really tempted to go and see it for yourself.
The funny thing is, I don't just speak for myself. I speak for many people. Nobody heard about this. Nobody knew about it. It was very, very secret. Non-disclosure agreements were signed because obviously fossil poaching is a known thing. I even read and heard that even with the reservoir being a nature reserve for bird watching as well, all the local bird hides were covered up so that people couldn't see what was being done, because there is that general fear of parts of the fossil being stolen and sold and never knowing where the heck it's ended up.
Yes, yeah.
So it was all kept in secrecy, and I do like to laugh because I actually filmed a video with Dean the summer of, oh gosh, I think it must have been last year. But at that point, Dean knew all about this ichthyosaur and because he was due to go out and excavate it not long after I filmed my video with him, and he knew all about it, and I was just oblivious, no idea, and I love that though. It's so funny.
Well, he kept the secret incredibly well.
I'm impressed.
How did they get that fossil out? That must have been a heck of an operation.
Yeah, it's a painstaking process. I mean, I can only talk from experience when I was out in Montana, but the way that it's done is it's a very delicate process of carefully excavating the area. A lot of the finer stuff gets done in the lab when the actual specimen is moved out of in situ, because the most important thing is to get it out of the harsh weather conditions, get it somewhere where it's safe and you can take your time on it properly. So getting the actual chunks of this fossil out the ground is a case of digging a trench around the area where the fossil is. And then you kind of have to carefully, once you've dug your trench, you then have to carefully start digging under the fossil so that you can then lift the entire block of rock and the surrounding rock out with it.
And they don't chip away once they've got it in situ, where it's, in a proper lab. Do they then chunk away at the rock as well so that you're left with the fossil?
Yeah, so once it's gotten into a safe location where it can be carefully prepared, any unnecessary parts of the surrounding rock would be removed. But the beauty of some of the surrounding rock is that then leads into a whole new other aspect of paleontology, which is to do with an aspect called taphonomy. And I do believe taphonomy, although not my area of expertise, is like the study of the environment in which the animal came to rest in.
So you find out.
So there's a lot.
I'm not with you.
Yeah. So there is a lot of kind of information that can be held with the surrounding rock.
So, as in the flora and fauna, the other things that would have died alongside this particular dinosaur, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the surrounding rock that it's held in could hold a lot of information about the story of maybe how this animal died. I mean, I know that a tooth of the ichthyosaur was found a little bit further afield from the body, still within a couple of meters radius. But it goes to show that if you kind of excavate this thing too close to where the skeleton was, you wouldn't have found maybe some of the pieces that maybe, drifted away from the main carcass.
How fascinating. So what's going to happen to this fossil now, and when will we get the chance to see it?
So I know that as of the moment, it's currently being held in a secure facility with paleontologist Nigel Larkin. He was co-heading the excavation with Dean Lomax. He's a very renowned kind of fossil conserver, preservator, and he has facilities where these things can be kept safely, where they can be worked on, or just held in storage until an appropriate location is found. I know that the council at Rutland are very much looking forward to trying to get some sort of funding from the government to have new tourism facilities opened up where these things can be put on display. They are very keen to keep it there in Rutland, and I think that would be a fantastic idea to bring tourism to that area as well. It is only a small little county.
It certainly would be great to be able to see that. And just to put it in context, this is an incredibly significant find, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Mary Anning herself, back in the 1800s, I mean, she found some really impressive specimens, some massive ichthyosaurs. But I still think this kind of trumps even her biggest discovery. I mean, coming in at about 33 foot, I believe. Yeah, 33 foot long. Ichthyosaurs of that size have not been found in the UK.
Apparently the skull weighs a ton, so it's going to be big, 10 metres long, goodness me.
Absolutely.
Kieran, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other discoveries in recent years. It's staggering how many new dinosaurs have been discovered and are discovered every year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to get a tune, if that's all right with you, and then we'll return in just a bit. Kieran Satchell with us today, an expert in paleontology with a huge passion for dinosaurs. Just how many fossils have you got in that house of yours, Kieran?
More than I can count on 5 hands if I had them.
And you've just revealed to me that strange screeching noise. I thought we had a technical fault. It's not. It's a little friend of yours in the background.
Yeah, it's my girlfriend's little feathery parrot.
Likes to appear on the radio when he can, yeah?
Yeah, she absolutely does. But she seems to have settled down now, bless her. She's called Rita.
We've been talking for a while about this amazing sea monster find in Rutland, and hopefully at some point we'll all get the chance to see it. But I read an article recently, Kieran, about new dinosaur discoveries, and it said that on average paleontologists have found more than 45 new dinosaur species every year since 2003. And I almost fell off my chair. I had no idea that these new discoveries were being made all the time. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely believable. And I think the funniest thing about that is I could bet money on most of those new discoveries being fossils that have been in collections and archives of museums for years and years. And scientists have come back, stumbled upon it, and looked at it again and gone, actually, this could warrant looking at twice. Have a look at it. And they've gone, oh my gosh, this is something that we haven't seen before. Most new dinosaur discoveries are from fossils that have been in collections for so many years, but just have been gathering dust.
But presumably not all of these are the huge lumbering monsters we instantly think of when we're talking about dinosaurs, but they could have been much smaller, perhaps insects, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, not quite. Obviously, you get discoveries of new insects, small little creatures like that as well, and smaller dinosaurs as well. I do know that one of the recent new dinosaur discoveries was from Wales, and I think it was coined the Welsh dragon or something similar to that. I can't remember for the life of me off the top of my head. But again, another example of a fossil which was in a collection for various years that hadn't really been looked at or touched, and they've gone back to it, looked at it again, and found that it's something completely new.
See, just as we have different animal species now living in different parts of the world, would the same have been the case for dinosaurs? You got different species living in different continents.
Absolutely. And it's a topic that I'm really passionate about and interested, because it can sometimes be quite a bit difficult to get your head around. But obviously, just like today, the way that we classify different animals, we give them species, and species belong to a group which is called the genera, which is the bigger group. The same would apply to dinosaurs. So, for example, when I mentioned to you about the group of dinosaurs called Spinosaurs, people instantly think of the famous Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3 with the long sail along its back. But actually, Spinosaurs is a greater term for a group of dinosaurs which were part of the same family, but there were different species within that group.
See, I'm wondering whether a particular dinosaur that I saw in this article, I think it was a National Geographic article, which caught my eye, the punk rock dinosaur of Morocco, which had spiky ribs. Does that come under the Spinosaurus term?
So that one is not from the Spinosaurus, although I see where you're coming from. That one is a dinosaur called... Gosh, I can't even tell how to pronounce that myself.
No. Don't worry, you're in good company.
Spisamellus. And basically that's from the group Ankylosaurs, which were the large armoured plated dinosaurs, like the famous Ankylosaurus, which had the massive club on the end of its tail.
But it's amazing that this punk rock dinosaur, I love the term that they've used, its ribs actually came through its skin, is that right?
Yeah, so the article implies that these spikes were sitting on top of muscles, and that the paleontologist from the London Natural History Museum, Susanna Maidman, she's been looking into this one as well. And she's also expressed that it's a really interesting thing for paleontologists to look at because it almost doesn't make biological sense.
It's mad, isn't it? Because the great thing is that we're making these discoveries so many million years later, but it can help us, can't it, with our understanding of science and anatomy and medicine even, maybe?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not too sure in regards of how much it would help us with medicine. I'm sure someone out there would definitely be able to give you an answer for that aspect. But absolutely, there are arguments saying that, looking into the past is useless. We should be spending our money and looking into the future. But there are so many examples with how past can help us understand the future.
I want to talk about the Isle of Wight because you've got a couple of interesting creatures from there, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would probably say, aside from the ichthyosaur, which is a marine reptile, my favorite dinosaur kind of discovery of 2021 is absolutely the spinosaurs from the Isle of Wight. Two, in fact, were released in just a single paper, very closely related to each other, called Ceratoseucops and Riparovenator.
They sound like something out of a Marvel film, don't they? Really?
Yeah. If anything, paleontologists have got a knack for giving really awesome names.
Is one of these? Did I read the hell heron?
Yeah. So the riverbank hunter and the heron from hell.
So what do we know about these particular dinosaurs? And would there have been many of them, do you think, in existence all those years ago?
Yeah, the diversity is showing to be greater than we had current understanding of. Obviously, looking at populations of animals alive today, we can grasp an idea of how diverse various groups are, but obviously we can only go off limited paleontological information. So up until now, we had one spinosaur from England, which is called Baryonyx. And Baryonyx is an incredibly famous dinosaur. And I would take note, just to mention the late Angela Milner, was a paleontologist from London who unfortunately recently passed away, but she was responsible for a majority of the science and the naming of Baryonyx. Mm-hmm. And basically, these two new dinosaurs discovered at the Isle of Wight are very closely related to our Baryonyx. If you picture, I like to describe it as a cassowary with a crocodile's face. That is very much the sort of animal you would be looking at, a very intimidating animal. And these two new spinosaurs from the Isle of Wight would have likely been living alongside animals like our Baryonyx as well.
Is there something to say that, that dinosaurs within the same group would have got on well, or would they, do you think, have attacked each other?
So, yeah, there definitely would have been competition for, obviously, food, resources, habitat, hunting grounds as well. And I definitely think that, obviously, there would have been conflict. There's many studies about, obviously, the rise of new species of dinosaurs, how that may have came to be, whether some closely related but different species of dinosaurs may be interbred, perhaps. There are all these biological questions that just sometimes fossils can't answer.
And you do wonder, don't you, whether they had the same problems with species that we do. For example, we were talking the other day about grey squirrels and red squirrels and the fact that, the greys came in, brought their diseases and killed off the reds, in so many areas. It would have been the same possibly for dinosaurs?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, these sort of processes would have happened over millions and millions of years. But, what we're looking at is at that point in time, all those years ago, the continent was split up. The continent was all as one mass Pangaea. Yeah. And obviously, as Pangaea started breaking apart, various species would have started drifting off into different locations of the world. And it's there where obviously they would have started diversifying. However, as time went on and, plate tectonics move, parts of the Earth's crust rise, there are these hypotheses that land bridges may have started to kind of be pushed up from the ocean, therefore then giving dinosaurs an opportunity to move between continents, and thus, like what you said about red and grey squirrels, introducing maybe disease, competition on predators, competition between predators rather, But obviously things that would happen over millions of years.
Oh, I'm beginning to really want a time machine now. Wouldn't it have been fascinating to see what went on? I was looking again at this article. It's hard to believe, isn't it, that there's a dinosaur that evolved that was toothless in Brazil. Surely every dinosaur needed teeth to survive.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of examples of maybe not obviously animals closely related to dinosaurs, but there are animals alive today that do fare perfectly well for themselves without teeth. Teeth are they're one of those things where it's totally dependent on what sort of food the animal in question is going to be eating.
I can see that, yeah. All these discoveries, though. I mean, there was another one that really caught my eye, a Mexican one with a comma-shaped crest. Some of these new discoveries. Have you seen the picture of that? These pictures, that they've recreated, they look pretty weird, don't they, these creatures?
Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. That particular kind of group of dinosaurs, which are kind of from the Lambeosaur group, they came with all sorts of extravagant kind of head ornamentation, and there's a lot of evidence to show that it was likely for communicating between one another. There would have been various perhaps colors, perhaps head motions and moving of the head would have signaled these ornaments in such a way that they could understand one another, very much like how humans use sign language.
I can see exactly why this is a subject that has gripped you and become such a passion over the years. I bet you're still giving workshops and different group chats to youngsters, are you?
Yeah, I absolutely am. The last one I did was over in Weymouth. It was last year. I went to the school of St. Nicholas and St. Lawrence in Weymouth and gave them a talk about how fossils help justify our understanding of evolution.
I'm pretty certain that a lot of the questions that they've been asking you in these sessions are a lot more intelligent than what I have this afternoon, because they know so much about this, don't they?
Yeah, kids are always really passionate about topics like this, especially when it comes to dinosaurs. And that they suck up all this information. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's like never to underestimate the children that I go and give talks to, because I go there with a certain kind of mindset of, okay, I've got to tone down the complicated terminology. Yeah. And when I start doing that, I start then getting kids like, do you mean this? Don't you mean this? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I wasn't expecting you to be understanding that.
They put you on the spot, did they?
Yeah, give me a run for my money.
Brilliant. Oh, Kieran, I always love having a chat. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about the latest developments. I'm sure that we'll catch up again soon, maybe in a month or two. Would that be all right?
That would be absolutely wonderful. I can't thank you enough for having me again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I learn so much whenever we chat. Really appreciate your time today. That's Kieran Satchell, an expert in paleontology, science. He's a freelance science communicator for the Jurassic Coast Trust. So you can look him up on Twitter if you want to find him and see a little bit more about some of the things that he's been posting about.